fall lovers, get ready. A huge drop in humidity is on the horizon. I'll let you know when some areas could wake up to temperatures in the 50s.
Protein-packed. Influencers push more protein in what you eat. But what if protein-rich foods are also ultra-processed foods? We'll boil it down.
Research at Risk, a new proposal by the Trump administration, could cut billions of dollars from the triangle. I'll break down the impacts for you coming up.
Aaron is finally out of here, way off in the North Atlantic, but not before leaving some pretty extensive flooding behind. We'll have more on that in a moment, but first, we need to talk about the weekend weather. How about lows in the 60s? And then Sunday could bring us our next chance for storms. Meteorologist Kat Campbell's in the WRAL Severe Weather Center. Kat, this is going to feel more like fall.
Next week, especially when our lows dip down to 60 degrees. For this weekend, we're in the mid-80s during the afternoon. The humidity isn't too bad tomorrow. A really nice day, but there will be some clouds that build in. Sunday, our eastern counties could see some storms return, and especially the North Carolina coast, another round of rain could slow down some of the cleanup for the Outer Banks. 8 a.m. Sunday, already that chance for rain, primarily along and east of I-95. We'll see that chance linger into the afternoon, especially east of Raleigh, and the Outer Banks should see it linger into the evening. There will be another area of rain in the mountains, but as that closes in on us, it's likely to fizzle out. So rain chances remain relatively low in the triangle, but higher to the east. Luckily, tomorrow still looks to be a pretty nice day at the coast. Highs are in the low to mid 80s, partly to mostly cloudy, and there's that chance for storms Sunday. It'll come with highs in the lower 80s. The risk for rip currents has been moderate to high today. It will be high again tomorrow for at least the Outer Banks. Please review your rip current safety if you plan on swimming in the ocean this weekend. Gerald.
North Carolina dodged a bullet. That's the quote of the day from Governor Josh Stein. He visited the North Carolina coast today after Hurricane Aaron passed through. The storm never made landfall, the eye that is, but it did leave behind a mess. Water damage under homes, streets flooded, debris everywhere on the beach. Fortunately, no loss of life reported. WR's Eric Miller has been covering this storm all week for us. I spoke with him about what Aaron left behind. Eric, you've been on the Outer Banks all week. You're in Manio today for the governor's news conference. We're going to get to that in a moment. But first, let's talk about the damage that we've seen from this storm. We've heard from people in Buxton who say that it's some of the worst damage they've ever seen from a storm, keeping in mind the storm never made landfall. What have you seen on the ground there?
Well, Gerald, we were never able to get onto Hatteras Island once this storm actually hit, so we have been having to lean on sources, lean on longtime island residents to get a picture of how things are looking. And it was really surprising to hear that. One longtime island resident who's lived there since 1966 telling us this was some of the worst damage he has ever seen. And we're not talking about houses or businesses destroyed here. Instead, we're talking about beach erosion, something that really kicked up in the last 24 hours. A photographer, Donnie Bowers, sent us photos that show the ocean fully into the shorefront there in Buxton. An enormous amount of beach has been lost there. In some cases, the pillars that support houses have been cracked, and those houses have been rendered unlivable, at least for the time being.
What's next for these communities? Many people evacuated earlier this week. Are they headed back home yet? And what does the cleanup process look like?
Well, Gerald, it really depends on where you are. Ocracoke Island, that's part of Hyde County. Hyde County has lifted their mandatory evacuation order for residents and property owners. They've restarted the ferry service out to Ocracoke, so residents have been able to go back today, those that did evacuate. For people who are on Hatteras Island in communities like Rodanthe and Buxton and Hatteras itself, if they left, they're still not able to get back. Highway 12 is still shut down. We're told it's likely going to be shut down for a couple of days as DOT crews both keep an eye on the coming high tides the next few days and work to try to pump out the feet of water and sand that have been left behind by this overwash.
Eric, you covered Hurricane Aaron, and on a much larger scale, Tropical Storm Helene in the mountains. I'm not trying to compare these two storms, but when you look at individual human suffering, are there some parallels?
Gerald, I will say these are radically different storms, and different for a lot of reasons. For one, Helene was a direct shot to the mountains. Aaron has been a very glancing blow. It never came on shore at any point. We barely experienced 5 minutes of rain in the 5 days that we've been out here at the North Carolina coast. There's also a question of how ready communities are to deal with the impacts of severe storms. You think about the North Carolina mountains, in almost no community is a house, is a business built to deal with massive flooding. Almost everything down on the North Carolina coast is. That is why businesses, that is why homes are up on those pilings, generally have absolutely no living quarters on the ground floor.
A very important distinction. Eric, thank you. Now, if you're just getting to the news tonight, let's get you caught up. Here are 5 things you should know right now. Franklin Street is back open after multiple fires broke out at the Sienna Hotel in Chapel Hill. This happened last night, but law enforcement has been on the scene for hours. More than 50 guests had to evacuate. Police later said the fires were set on purpose. They later found 60-year-old Randall Bullock dead in one of the rooms on the 3rd floor. They say he worked at the hotel. Police are still looking for a motive. Guests likely won't be able to return to the hotel until tomorrow. Chatham County deputies are investigating a murder-suicide. Investigators say someone called 911 yesterday saying their name was Andre Hill and that he killed his wife, Shannon Bailey Hill. Deputies drove to their home in Pittsburgh where they found her body. Later, investigators found the husband's body in Kentucky. The Nash County Animal Shelter is in trouble with the state, but is showing signs of improvement. The shelter re-inspected a few days ago and remains in what's called disapproved status, but it also found great improvement in sanitation and that animals appeared healthy. Last month, the shelter was temporarily closed and fined thousands of dollars. The county says they're in the process of hiring one more animal control officer. An update on the parking situation at Apex Friendship High School, where parking is a premium. A woman known as Miss Annie was allowed to keep letting her students park in her yard. Now, we told you earlier this month that she let students park on her property for a fee. The town banned her from doing this, but then she and the community responded. Today, the Apex mayor said her yard has a new designation which allows students to park there again. A longtime member of the Wolfpack Sports Network is calling it a career. Tony Haynes first joined the network in 1998. He's been a sideline reporter for football broadcasts, an analyst for basketball, and a play-by-play announcer for baseball. He's also an NC State alum. Haynes will retire at the end of the football season. North Carolina has already lost tens of millions of dollars in federal research grants that were canceled by the Trump administration. But a new analysis shows the Triangle could lose more than $2 billion if Congress approves more funding cuts to NIH. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie explains what might be ahead.
The National Institutes of Health is the largest public funder of medical research in the U.S. A lot of that funding comes to North Carolina, to places like Research Triangle Institute, to look at diseases like cancer, dementia, and diabetes. Well, RTI, UNC, and Duke could all lose hundreds of millions of dollars in funding next year. The Trump administration is proposing to cut NIH funding by 40% in next year's budget. If that becomes a reality, data researchers at SciMap say that would cost the Triangle $2.1 billion and some 9,000 jobs.
North Carolina, particularly the Research Triangle area, is really a powerhouse for research, especially biomedical research.
SciMap co-founder Alyssa Sinclair says historically, science funding in the U.S. has had bipartisan support.
It's been wildly successful. It's led to advances and benefits for Americans, and it's really positioned the U.S. as a leader globally in driving research and health innovation. And so all of that is at risk right now.
SciMap's analysis shows North Carolina's 4th congressional district would be the hardest hit in the entire country, facing a projected loss of $1.2 billion and 5,300 jobs. The 2nd district projected to lose $537 million and 2,300 jobs under the proposal, and the 13th district would lose $321 million and 1,400 jobs.
I simply do not understand what the Trump administration has against science and progress.
Congresswoman Deborah Ross represents the 2nd district.
It would be devastating for Wake County, but more importantly, it would be devastating to the scientific enterprise and a gift to China.
I asked the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, why are these cuts being proposed? Is the Trump administration fully aware of the likely economic impact to research hubs like the Triangle, or of the likely impact on the biomedical and scientific research community? An HHS spokesperson did not answer our questions, but responded in part, it is a deliberate course correction to strengthen accountability and ensure NIH funds research that delivers measurable impact for all Americans. Laura Leslie, WRAL News, Research Triangle Park.
We asked RTI, UNC Chapel Hill, and Duke to comment on the proposed cuts. Duke declined, and the others didn't respond. Congresswoman Valerie Foushee also didn't respond to our interview request. Have you seen videos like these on social media? Protein is a buzzword in the food world right now, and people are sharing ways to pack your meals with it. But are the protein bars, powders, pastas, and chips at the grocery store actually good for you? And where is the line when it comes to protein rich and ultra processed? WRAL's Ashley Rowe will have some answers after the break.
We are going to spend the next few minutes talking about my favorite topic, food. Specifically, two buzzwords in the food world right now, ultra processed and protein. We're supposed to eat less ultra-processed food and eat more protein. But what happens when food is both high in protein and ultra-processed? Things like protein bars, protein powder, or the protein-infused chips popping up on grocery store shelves. The campaign against ultra-processed foods has been going on for years. Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is famously against them. That very first report from his Make America Healthy Again Commission found children's diets are dominated by ultra-processed food. It's the stuff that's high in added sugars, chemical additives, and saturated fats. These foods are linked with greater risk of obesity, type 2 diabetes, and other chronic conditions. And it's not just kids. This month, the CDC put out a study that found more than half of the average total calories Americans eat are from ultra-processed foods. This applies to pretty much everyone. And there's no class divide. The CDC found income level had no significant impact. Rich or poor, Americans are eating ultra-processed foods. But is all ultra-processed food bad? Like I said, there's a growing trend of packing food with protein all over social media. People are sharing their favorite hacks to get 20, 30, 40 grams of protein into their meals and snacks. These videos get tens of thousands of views. Major brands are jumping on the bandwagon, too. Starbucks has a new protein drink, 20 grams of protein with your cafe latte. Coca-Cola spent nearly $1 billion on the popular protein shake brand Fairlife. Earlier this year, after being in business for just 9 months, a protein bar called David raised $75 million. Companies have been doing this for a long time, using food science to give us permission to eat processed food. You've seen labels for things like fat-free or less salt or whole grain. All those things can be true. Pumping the stuff full of protein is no different. But it doesn't change the fact that the food is processed. A local dietitian says this can be problematic, but it can also be helpful. And to help us out more with this, we're bringing in WRAL health reporter Grace Haba. You spoke with this dietitian. What are her main concerns?
Yeah, I spoke with Addie Claire Jones. She's a registered dietitian and mom of 2 here in Wake County. And she says, really, as with anything, when it comes to protein, ultra processed, the whole battle there, be mindful.
With protein being on the front of everything, it's like, oh, this is a high protein snack, so I can eat as much of it as I want. And that's just not the case. Even from a calorie energy standpoint, from a digestion standpoint, we're looking for like the safe food in the grocery store that we can just eat as much as we want of, and that doesn't exist.
The average person really doesn't need to be reaching for a protein supplement, and most of us can get the protein that we need in our diet from whole foods. Things like eggs, lentils, and meats are most of the time are sufficient enough. So when it comes to things like protein bars and some of those other things we tend to gravitate toward, she said those really need to be our plan C, and that most of us need to have a plan A and B before we're reaching for something like that. Try to make things on our own, and again, reach for whole foods before some of these processed alternatives.
A lot of kids going back to school now. Families are packing their lunches. What about the protein-enriched food like pasta. What does the dietitian say about opting for that versus some of those whole foods?
Especially when it comes to kids, she actually says that's a great alternative. She particularly recommends the Berea Protein Plus brand. She says she gives that to a lot of her clients as well and uses that with her own children. And she says with kids, it can be especially beneficial for helping them reach those protein goals because let's face it, kids may not sit down and eat a whole plate of beans, but this protein pasta, what it does is it swaps some of that wheat flour out for bean flour. So you're still getting the added nutrients in your kids' diet in a food and shape that they're going to want to eat.
Be mindful.
Yes.
Thank you, Grace.
Every now and then, summer offers us a very gem of a day, and they're doing that for tomorrow. Kat, Saturday is going to be gorgeous, and even a little chance for rain on Sunday is not going to get in the way of a great weekend.
Exactly, Gerald. You said it best. It's going to be a pretty nice weekend. 66 is the low tonight. If you want to open up the windows later on or tomorrow morning, let in some fresh air. The humidity will be low by late August standards. Tomorrow morning, 68 degrees if you want to head out for a walk, a dog walk, 77 at noon. And then during the afternoon, high temperatures top out in the low to mid 80s. There will be periods of time where there's mostly cloudy skies. So not a clear blue sky tomorrow, but all around not a bad day out there. Lunchtime looking pretty quiet here locally with the bulk of the rain tomorrow staying in South Carolina. But tomorrow night, we've got rain lifting to the north, and that should arrive at the North Carolina coast by the morning. And our eastern counties will wake up to that chance for rain pretty early in the day on Sunday. This is primarily east of Raleigh, along and east of I-95 with the best chance. I can't rule out it extending into Nash County, Johnston County, Cumberland County as well. But the stuff to the west doesn't look like it'll make it here. We're going to be watching the eastern activity, and a heads up for anybody who is headed to the beach this weekend. Sunday does bring a pretty good chance for rain at the beach. The Outer Banks cleanup is ongoing, and Sunday could kind of slow that down a bit. If you have a garden going or grass that's, you're working on improving, you may need to do some watering. Not a whole lot of rain in the forecast over the next week. It's a drier pattern for us and no imminent tropical threats either. We do have two new areas that we are going to be watching. I told you about them yesterday as well. This one with a 90% chance of developing is heading north toward Bermuda. The model plots have trended a little east, maybe avoiding a direct hit there for Bermuda. And then the next one to watch is this wave. The chance actually went down a little bit for it to develop today. 40% chance of it developing. The model plots carry it just south of the Caribbean islands as we get toward Wednesday evening of next week. A lot of question marks with that one. We've got a long time to watch it, but if you do have interest in the Caribbean, keep an eye on it. We'll watch it longer term for Mexico and maybe the Gulf, but we've got a lot of time to track it. So we'll let you know if the thought process changes. In the meantime, enjoy the weekend. It's going to be pretty nice. Sunday, we're watching for some rain in our eastern counties. Monday is back to school for many kids in the area. 87, mostly sunny. A beautiful start to the school year. And then comes our fall front. High temperatures are still in the low 80s. So to be clear, it's not going to be cold weather, but at night it'll have that cooler and crisp feel. 62 by Wednesday morning, 60 Thursday morning, and 61 Friday morning. Those mornings are counties toward the Virginia border as well as more rural cities. Could see lows even dip into the upper 50s, Gerald.
That's one. Sounds wonderful. Great week to go back to work, back to school rather, Kat, if you have to go. Class is back in session next week. We've been covering back to school for decades. So tonight we go into the archives to 1984 when the Trapper Keeper, remember that, was essential as a number 2 pencil. Your Friday moment of nostalgia after the break. But first, let's get you geared up for the weekend. There's a lot going on as you head out and about. Just about every student in our area will be back in school next week. Summer break almost over. A new school year is about to begin. WRAL has you covered. Back to school every year for decades. The students and their families always go shopping ahead of the first day of school, but the styles and the supplies have changed quite a bit over the years. Thank you for making WRAL your choice for local news. We leave you with your Friday moment of nostalgia.
No way. Now that's not.
Shoes seem to be at the top of just about everybody's back-to-school priority list, followed by clothing.
What's the big thing to get this year?
I don't know, I guess jeans of different kinds, like Guess jeans or gasoline, I guess.
What are they?
There's jeans are shorter on the leg, I guess, and they just have different styles of them. I'm kind of into punk clothes, so anything that looks trashy, we wear.
And of course, what would the first day of school be without a new haircut?
To look good.
Who do you got to look good for in school?
Anybody.
Of course, another school necessity is a fresh notebook, new pens, and this thing called a trapper keeper.
It's it's a folder that has a lot of individual things that you can put paper in, individual folders inside it.
Along with the trapper keeper, here are some of the 1984 styles in school supplies: a piano-shaped pencil sharpener, a Star Wars eraser, and my favorite, the pencil with a gumball machine on the top. Gumballs not included. Not everyone we spoke with was overly excited about back-to-school shopping, or for that matter, going back to school.
What's the big thing this year you're looking forward to going back to school for?
Graduating.
That's the big thing?
Yeah, I want to get out.
While there was a lot of back-to-school shopping going on, it seemed everybody was buying things for themselves or parents buying them for their children. Whatever happened to children buying an apple to bring to the teacher for the first day of school? Brian Glazer, Action News 5, Raleigh.
Keep watching WRAL News over the air Channel 34 and Spectrum Channel 1257.